Hello, hello, hello.
Well, hello, James. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday night with another round of That Class with me, Craig Stewart, and
Me, James Mathewson, looking like the second coming of Christ because I think my ring light's a bit too bright at the moment, so I'm going to adjust that. But which is actually quite appropriate. I think we're going to come on to something to do with the second coming of Christ.
maybe.
Very excited. How has your week been since we last did an episode of That Class, Craig?
I feel like we get into a run of saying the same thing at the start of every week, and it's, my lord, a lot has happened since we last spoke. But no, I had a nice weekend, a lovely weekend. I'll tell you what did happen. I went to fill up my car with diesel, and it cost me £106. 106 macaroons, but we'll get onto that. What about you, James? How's it been?
Yeah, it's been good. I had a great weekend. I had a wonderful time over the weekend, and then you just kind of settle back into reality. And this behind me, the news, which is never off at the moment, because you just don't know. You give it 5 minutes, you give it 10 minutes, and you've missed a whole story that's developed, haven't you? But I was at BBC Studios today, and I can tell you that our fatigue is shared among some of their journalists, because some of them exhausted. They're building their set at BBC Scotland. They're building their big set for the election on May the 7th. So I was watching some of that while I was recording the Scotcast podcast with them. But it was great to see them at work. But I tell you now, don't envy some of those journalists who are trying to keep up to speed with this 24/7.
Well, they don't have a technical team there, do they? Because I tell you what, James, we are in need of a bit of a change of staff here, I've got to be honest. So,
Really?
As you're aware, last week we had some technical difficulties. The stream wasn't started, so I've got to make it clear to people, tens of thousands of pounds I've sunk into this podcast now. Production team, we've got sound engineers, we've got soundboards, we've got the lot, right? It's cost us thousands.
That AI, I'll not forgive you for that AI software you spent money on.
The AI software that I've been sinking money into, yeah, there's that as well. So, we're in the hole. But like I said, we've got 30 days to pay that. So I can only assume in 30 days we'll be flying. But no, sure. Just to address some issues from last week, the stream failed to start for the first 10 minutes. So that was a bit of a hiccup. So the production team were in trouble for that. And also, I'm hoping right now I'm finally coming through crystal clear with the audio, because I'm not going to name any names, but there was a simple defaulting setting on my computer which was incorrectly set. Now, like I said, we've been paying thousands and thousands of pounds for this production team, right?
It's not good.
And for such a simple oversight, needless to say, I was absolutely furious, and I'm hoping finally I'll be coming through these airwaves. Actually, James, I was going to suggest, after the stream, I was going to run a late night book reading, where it's basically just me sending people bedtime stories, essentially. Okay. I was thinking Matt Goodwin's new book could send people off quite easily. But yeah, so wanted to address those issues early on.
Incredible. And I mean, Craig, you put a lot of effort into this. People won't know this, but Craig does the heavy lifting here. I turn up and look pretty, and too bright if my ring light isn't correctly adjusted. But Craig's doing a lot of this heavy lifting on the technical side and managing these reprobates in our sound engineering and video engineering departments. But I'm pleased to see that you're running a tight ship, mate. And I'm hearing you crystal clear, almost too clear, to be honest. I think I can hear in the distance the sounds of the North Sea lapping against the shore there in the coast Northumberland. It sounds idyllic, but it's a very good quality tonight. So I think our viewers and our listeners will not be too displeased with that.
No, and we have a jam-packed show this evening, do we not, James? We do. My goodness. I mean, it's fantastic.
We're going to start with the Hungarian election, surely, because, I mean, that's been on a lot of people's minds. And I think it's one of those things, right? I don't know about you, but like when localized elections around the world, when they're not, in your country, I think often people think, well, I barely have time to keep up with the politics in my own country, let alone what's happening in Hungary. So that'll be interesting for us to get into as well. And then obviously the continuation of this world that we're in with Donald Trump at the moment, which just seems to be news story after news story.
Yeah, definitely. I had the exact same thought. I think when it came to the Hungarian elections, I'll be, put my cards straight down the table. I'm not an expert in Hungarian politics, right? That is not my strong point. However, as I always like to do, is I like to think, right, how does this affect the people in our communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I found really interesting, I'll be honest, I haven't really managed to dig into it too deeply yet, but there's a very interesting common thread there between Orban, Mr. Nigel Farage, and a gentleman by the name of Steve Bannon, right? Now, this isn't something that I've been managed to dig into too deeply, I'll be honest, but Steve Bannon, a long-time advisor of Mr. Donald Trump as well, who, on the surface, it appears that wanted to put together a ring of sort of far-right populist leaders across Europe and be like the face of MAGA across Europe. Is that a correct assumption, James?
Yeah, Steve Bannon's been on tour really since he was seen as creating MAGA. He brought this, helped Donald Trump bring this coalition together in kind of 2016. And since then, he's looked to export it really to Europe, and he wanted to create this movement of ultra-conservatism and kind of far-right activity, but electable far-right activity in Europe. Because for a long time, in countries like France, you've had people like Marie Le Pen, her father before her. You've had these dynasties of kind of far-right activity, but none of them getting really anywhere close to being in power, which is great. That was always great in Europe because we had these kind of crazies that we ignored. But now with the American behemoth behind it and with the MAGA project having been successful, they look to export that outwards. And Bannon's been on a European tour. There's a reason Tommy Robinson's just been over in the US. There's a reason why Elon Musk is being beamed into these protests that they have. There's a reason why, collaboration between the AfD in Germany. To see a fascist party in Germany already, barely 100 years after the last one, is shocking. But there's a reason why that's happening. It's people like Steve Bannon at the heart of that. There is I don't like to make it sound like it's a global conspiracy, but there's definitely collaboration. There's an effort to try and make to make the MAGA movement international.
So I think it's worth rewinding just a bit and going, essentially just laying out what has happened, just for those who haven't seen what's happened in Hungary overnight. Is that Viktor Orban, what was the name of his party?
Oh God,
I'm putting you on the spot there a little bit, but yeah, essentially Viktor Orban, who's a far right leader in Hungary, had been for 16 years by all accounts, sort of anti-democratic, very closely touching on a dictatorship there. What I didn't realise actually as well that he'd done another 4 years prior, so he's actually served 20 years.
16 years initially, and then obviously those 4 years make it 20 in power really. So. And I think the party Fidesz, I cannot remember how to pronounce it, either Fidesz or Fidesz.
Fidesz,
has been their political movement all this time. But like you say, these things don't happen overnight. It's been grown for years and years and years, and now for the first time, and almost shockingly, they've been defeated in an election, and this was seen as by many in Hungary as the kind of election that would be the last chance, really democratically, because he's been shifting in such an authoritarian fashion and has been emboldened by people like Trump and actively supported as well by them, that this was seen as the last chance to have democratic kind of influence in their own country. And if they could get him out now, then they would. But I did not expect him to concede. I thought, like all autocrats, but like Trump himself, he would probably say, it's a stitch up, or it's fake news, or it's a fraud or something. But he's conceded, and he has conceded to Peter, and I believe pronunciation-wise again, Magyar. And Magyar is so interesting thing. A fact I learned earlier today, actually, when I was at the BBC. Magyar means in Hungarian, and in English translation of that name, it means Hungarian. So you can't have a more Hungarian name.
Wow.
Than Magyar. It's kind of like the example I was given was that it's kind of like an American running for president who is called Johnny American. Johnny America, this kind of like all-encompassing guy. So he is Mr. Hungary. He's from a dynasty of conservative politicians in Hungary, but pro-European, pro-EU, seen as pro-Ukrainian, if not pro-Ukrainian, at least anti-Russian and anti-Putin, which is the big difference between him and Orban. And of course, not authoritarian. Well, not yet anyway. We'll see where he goes. But, this is an interesting thing. And his views aren't widely known on everything. Things like LGBT plus rights. They're not illegal in Hungary yet, but they're going that way because Viktor Orban had banned Pride. He'd made Pride illegal, the Pride marches, and they were headed that way. And now Magyar, he hasn't really talked about it. He was against the Pride marches being cancelled, but he was very much against them on being cancelled in a kind of expression of freedom kind of way. I don't know how he'll pivot now that he's been successful in his election, but it will be really interesting to see what the fallout is.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know how accurate it was, but I'm sure I've seen him mention something in one of his victory speeches that he wants to make Hungary a place where you're allowed to love anyone that you want. So I think that was a bit of a reference to the LGBT plus issues. So it'll be, like I say, it'll be interesting. What I did find interesting, though, right, just for people listening in, is that this Viktor Orban was someone who was really, really supported by none other than Mr. Donald Trump. Yeah. You had his right hand man, JD Vance, was over there doing a tour supporting him during election interference as well. A little bit weird.
Same people. Do you remember when those Labour MPs went across and campaigned for the Democrats against Trump, and he absolutely lost his mind and said it was election interference? Yet this isn't somehow.
Yeah, and by the landslide defeat that he suffered, it appears that now, Johnny America, what's he called again?
Magyar, yeah.
Yeah, Magyar now has the authority in government to essentially overturn a lot of the work that Orban had put in to essentially make the country an anti-democratic setup. So good news all around. I think it's just interesting to see how that sort of leadership is starting to falter in Europe. So you've got Donald Trump in America, who, with midterms coming up in November, looks to be on set to get absolutely hammered. You've got Orban in Hungary, again, absolutely hammered. There's been falters and stutters in France and in the Netherlands. Those fights are still ongoing, by all accounts. But yeah, it's just interesting to see, or is that the timeline? Are they slightly ahead of where we're going to be? And hopefully we will start to piece together that actually Mr. Nigel Farage may not be a good idea for this country. And hopefully we realise that before it's too late. That's my hope. Maybe it's naive, but I'm interested to hear what you think, James.
I really hope so, mate, because, people give you the laugh and stuff when you say that this is where Farage would go. People say, don't be ridiculous. He's not that bad. It's never that bad. But that's what everyone thinks when this happens. And it's so evident. It's so obvious. Not only are the things that he believes in and the things that he voices opinions on, not only are they kind of, disgusting in themselves, and we can have those debates politically, but the man's character, that's what we need to get back the judging elected representatives on, character, because it shows, right? It shows with Trump. Trump is an absolute, narcissist, malignant narcissist, really nasty piece of work. Everyone knew that and everyone knows that. We see it in Farage as well. He cannot take criticism from journalists, right? If you're going to ask to be prime minister of this country, you're going to put yourself forward and you say, I'm going to put myself forward before the British people and be like, you have to take questions and you have to take difficult questions. And if you get annoyed at those very basic, questions, the way he throws his toys out the pram when he gets asked about, Russian involvement or Russian bribes in his party, anything like that, he just shuts it down by mocking the reporters. And I hope, I believe this to be true, but I don't know. I just don't think the British people like that. In the same way the American people have tolerated it, I do not think it goes down well here.
Well, I was about to say, I think that Nigel Farage has been emboldened by Donald Trump in the way he can handle reporters. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely bang on. It'll be interesting to see what the difference is between how the UK population receives it and how it's received in America.
Yeah.
But even just today, I seen a clip of. It's a shame we haven't got it lined up actually, but a clip of Mr. Nigel Farage responding to a question from a reporter about Richard Tice's ongoing tax scandal, which we've covered in a previous episode. We did. But those issues are coming to light again. It appears, I think the Sunday Times did further investigation, and it appears that there was to put it bluntly, illegal activity, and that tax wasn't paid on dividends that were paid from his. It's so messed up, right? It's just so. This is just exactly what reform is. His property company paid dividends out while under a very specially labelled tax identification, whatever it is, paid out dividends to his to Richard Tice, but failed to pay tax on it. Right now, and apparently this is illegal. Doesn't surprise us. Should be illegal. But Nigel Farage responded to this today by asking the reporter, "Are you an expert? Are you a tax expert?" And the reporter, obviously, who isn't an expert in tax, said, "No, I'm not." And well, neither am I, so let's leave it. And that was it. That's it.
Yeah.
But that's the moment over, James, as well. That's the moment over. So, regardless of how that lands, he is not answering the questions that he should be asking. He's not answering the questions that he should be answering about the performance and the behaviour of his deputy leader, who isn't paying tax, right? Isn't paying tax, and they campaign on the idea that people are taking money from the economy when they shouldn't be. Well, they've got the opportunity to pay back now, and they're not. And my theory is the most vulnerable people in our society, if you give them the support that they need when they need it, right? You get people on their feet, they start repaying back, and they will repay. He can repay now, and they're not. And they're laughing their way to the offshore banks. They're laughing their way to the Isle of Wight. And we need to wake up to it.
If we think for 1 second, this is what annoys me about people who are voting reform, people who are voting for Farage, people who are watching GB News and getting incensed by immigrants taking money or asylum systems taking money or disabled people taking money, right? How could you be angry about that and then turn your back on the fact that the deputy leader of their political party is not even living in this country because he doesn't want to contribute to the that's insane to me, that you can on one hand think, oh, actually, Jimmy down the road who lost a leg to diabetes or whatever, he shouldn't have a car, he shouldn't have a mobility car, he shouldn't get any funding, he shouldn't have any money, he's greedy, he's a burden on society, all of this stuff, right? When their increase is like an extra £6 a week proposed, that incenses them. And yet Farage, Tice, all of them do these efficiencies to the very point where they're willing to move and live in another country. Call me old-fashioned, right? But if you want to be the deputy prime minister, which is probably what Tice would be under a reform government, if you want to be the deputy prime minister of this country, I shouldn't be having to ask you to pay tax, mate. I shouldn't be having to convince you to live here. I shouldn't be having to tell you to move back from Dubai. Let alone the fact that you're stirring up hate about Islam and Muslims, and all, but you're going to move to a Muslim country to avoid paying tax. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I was just going to touch on that as well about, he's a deputy leader for a party that, has raised serious concerns about Islam in the UK and has decided to own property and live in a country that is, it's an Islamic country. Like, what are we doing here? It just, honestly, it's just one big, like I said, they are laughing their way to their offshore trusts. And nothing speaks louder than the news that came out. In fact, there's been so much news about this. I think I just caught the front of the Daily Mirror, and it was talking about Robert Jenrick. I mean, I don't know if you had seen this in the papers, James, something to do with Robert Jenrick, given, I think it was when the Tories were in power and obviously he was in government, something around them avoiding... I probably shouldn't have gone into this without having all the details. But one other story, a story that I do know about, is Nigel Farage buying £2 million worth of Bitcoin in what's his name? Quasi Kwarteng's crypto company. Bear in mind, he was the chancellor for Liz Truss that crashed the economy. This is the guy who, like notoriously was the worst chancellor of all time. Of all time, right?
Yeah.
And now Farage is doing dealings with them and buying £2 million. Why is he? How has he got £2 million worth of money lying around to buy crypto in the first place, right? And then still be the champion of working class people? How?
Mate, these people who I need to get the phone numbers of these people who they managed to convince to bankroll all of their endeavors, because I've got some tartan paint to sell them. I've got some fork handles to sell them, because like at the same time as Kwasi Kwarteng was crashing the economy and Farage was saying, oh, bad guy, bad government. He was pulling them down. He was saying that Liz Truss wasn't fit for the job, which she wasn't, and he was getting political capital out of it. And then a few years later, that he's given them money to invest on his behalf. Now, forgive me, Craig, but if you crash the economy, I mean, I love this podcast and I love the fact that we do this every week, mate. But if you crash the economy, I'm not sure I would be trusting you with my money. I wouldn't be investing in you. But that just shows how rotten this is, because none of them actually care about the economy. They care about their own economy. They care about their back pocket and what's in it. And Kwasi Kwarteng being able to set up a cryptocurrency, and the thing is, it's Trump 101 as well. They really got on the crypto wave early. There was this question when crypto came about in America, largely, as to who would kind of back it and what politically, who would take up the crypto cause, really. And Trump's lot were open to it. And Trump was sold. He was convinced, mainly because of the returns he was promised, which he made an absolute fortune on his own crypto coin. At the time of the election, don't forget, 2024, he made an absolute fortune from his crypto coin. So he was convinced. But because of that, they have been able to ensure that regulation is not anywhere near what it should be with these currencies, and the speculation and all the stuff we've talked about that goes with it, like Polymarket, all of that betting and speculation's done with crypto. But that's trying to happen here now. And Kwasi Kwarteng, if you've been the Chancellor of the Exchequer, however bad you were at that job, right, it's quite an impressive CV. Kwasi Kwarteng has an impressive CV behind him. I'm sure he can find a job somewhere. I'm sure that's not a problem. The fact that he's starting a cryptocurrency and people like Nigel Farage are investing in it tells you everything you need to know about how much money they're going to be able to make doing this.
Yeah, and he's only doing it for it's quite clear it's for money. It's not for the interest of the British people. He's not setting himself up to I don't know, to set himself up this great relationship when he becomes prime minister. It's for money, And meanwhile, like I said at the weekend, I'm paying 106 quid for a tank of fuel, and it's biting us right in the bum. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're just playing two different games, and that bearing in mind.
Going further, they would prefer the irony of the likes of Farage and stuff sitting on their words around Iran. But let's not forget, if Farage had it his way, if Richard Tice had it his way, we would be bombing Iran as well as America, and things would not be where they are right now. The only reason things are where they are, I mean, obviously the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has happened, and now we've moved on with that. But things are not resolved. There is no deal that people are trusting or actually adhering to. Things are very much where they were, last week. And I don't see any, other than tankers paying to come out of the Strait, a huge amount of money from Iran. I don't see any way kind of the oil issue, the fuel issue is going to improve dramatically.
Yeah, but just to quickly before we move on from the reform stuff, right? Because I found that story on Robert Jenrick, who by the way who set up in Nigel Farage's team to be the future Chancellor of the Exchequer, right? Okay. And this is a guy who promised to cut flight taxes, right? So cut short haul flight taxes, which sounds great, but after being given £40,000 from a German airline company.
This was Condor,
German
airline, Condor. How patriotic, Robert. You know, he's such a patriot that he took 40 grand from a foreign business to advocate for them with the policy of the political party that he's now the chancellor of. There you go, guys. Reform UK, patriots. They're advocating for German EU businesses. That's the irony of it as well. And doing that, you know, the cash for access thing is always been a scandal for years, and normally it gets tackled, but it just seems they are so brazen with it now that they're not even bothered hiding it. You know, you got Farage doing work for so many different companies, not just to mention anyone else. Anyone can have a slice of the pie. If you've got 60 quid, you can get Nigel Farage to say whatever you want on Cameo. So, you know, why are we surprised that companies are not paying for the same privilege?
It's hard. It's hard to deal with, isn't it, when you know how much people are struggling. You know, I walk through my local town, and sometimes you forget what's going on behind people's doors, and you forget that the poverty that is just living on your doorstep next door. You know, you're surrounded by it, and you forget it, and I actually sometimes, you know, consciously have a think and go, sort of just reflect that, like, you know, people really are struggling. Meanwhile, you know, you've got people like Donald Trump at the very, very top, just playing games, just completely driving the world's economy off a cliff because he can, and he's got an ego, and nothing says ego more than what we've got lined up for nonsense of the week. And I feel like this is probably a good time to get into it because, I mean,
oh god,
once again, I mean, there's a long list to go through of nonsense coming out of.
I'm very pleased that you've been vetting nonsense of the week, because I don't think I could cope with it. I don't think my nervous system could cope with actually sitting down and going through all of the nonsense to remind myself what we could choose from. So I'm very grateful, mate, that you've done that. And I know I know what this week's is, and I agree with you. I wholeheartedly endorse your choice.
So we know where we are in terms of, you know, everyone listening will be more than aware of what's been going on in Iran on a basic level. Donald Trump chose to take out a nuclear program, which he took out the back end of last year. So I don't quite know what was going on there, but, you know, whatever. He decided to initiate a war in Iran. This got a lot of pushback from various different people. In fact, what's interesting to know, actually, for people who aren't, you know, as online as what I am, there's a lot of Donald Trump's old supporters in the podcast circuit and in the, you know, like online influencers who were big supporters of Donald Trump. So you're saying like Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, Candace Owens, the old CNN, the old Fox News reporter as well.
Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, Tucker Carlson, yes. And all of these now are regretting backing this man because they've seen what's going on. They've seen how it's affecting the country. They've seen, you know, it's just ego-driven. We all know the story. But what's been nonsense of the week this week for me, and it'll be no surprise for people who've seen it. I'm just going to pull up an image right now for those who are watching, for those who are listening. There is an AI-generated, and this has been posted on Donald Trump's Truth social page, okay? So it's basically his own version of Twitter. There is a AI-generated image of Donald Trump who appears to be posing as Jesus. I don't think there's any other way of saying it. It's Jesus. Resurrecting a man who looks a lot like Jeffrey Epstein. But I mean,
it's undoubtedly, you know how AI works with it, like putting faces in that it recognizes and associates with other images. I think it's the AI, whether intentionally or not on Donald Trump's part, I doubt it. But I think the AI has made that person look like Jeffrey Epstein because it looks a lot like Jeffrey Epstein.
So Donald Trump now has been... I mean, that'll be interesting for OpenAI to reflect on. So in terms of like the intelligence chart, you've got AI, and then I like to think that, you know, humans are still above the level of AI. But in between that, you've got Donald Trump. So AI has surpassed Donald Trump's intelligence. So it's on the way to actual normal human level. You know, so that's an interesting one for...
We have around him as well, for everyone else listening.
Yeah.
We've got a nurse some military personnel. I don't know what the guy in the cap is. Is he maybe police or law enforcement? But it's very like the American populace looking up at Trump. Trump has light coming out of his hands because he's obviously a healer, and he's in these Jesus robes with the American flag behind, a bald eagle, of course. They love a bald eagle. And which, by the way, I'm not even going to get into this, but I'm going to just mention the fact that Trump's administration just basically allowed oil companies to wipe out animal species if they get in their way. So I don't know why on earth they're bothered about wildlife when they're doing that. And then in the sky, coming from heaven, you've got the spirits of dead soldiers being rising up, and one of them has a unique silhouette that I've looked online at, and it's Hawk Girl, I think, from the new Superman movie. So it's quite the collaboration, really. This piece of work.
Yeah, there's an F-35 fighter jet, or maybe an F-22 there as well. So just for and actually in the background we've got the Eiffel Tower as well. So yeah, so it's an absolute corker of an image. I want this tattooed. I'll be honest with you. I know we're struggling financially on the last class petty cash. I'll
pay for that. We'll start a crowdfund because that as a back piece would go incredibly hard, I think.
So yeah. So that, I mean, so yeah, let's sort of build on that a little bit, because I think what's worth knowing is that Donald Trump, of all of the institutions to pick a fight with, has picked a fight with the Catholic Church and the Pope himself. So the question is, James, is Donald Trump bigger than God?
Well, I'm just wondering how many, because I know there's been a lot of popes, right? I believe there's been 267 popes, and there's been in total, how many presidents of the United States? Is he 45? 40?
Yeah, less than 50.
46?
I think this is his 47th term, isn't it? Yeah. He's the 47th.
There's been less than 50 US presidents, right, who can only stand for a maximum of 2 terms. And popes who are elected for life until they die, right, basically, there's been 267 of them. So just as institutions go, the Catholic Church not only is older than America by a country mile, but it is a far more ancient institution. And the fact that they now have a US Pope, you would hope would be a point of pride for them, right? They would think, oh, this guy's a US Pope. And whether you're, right wing, left wing, whatever your politics are, and you were in power and you were elected, you kind of recognize that the Pope has a universal appeal as a peacemaker. And you're going to expect a peacemaker and a spiritual person to say very peace-focused kind of things, right? And criticize war, criticize suffering, all of these things. That's what they do. But not Trump. He's not happy with it. He says he doesn't want a pope that is against his actions in Venezuela. He doesn't want a pope who's against his actions in Iran. So what he's wanting is a pope, a spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, who is in favor of all of his military actions, no matter if they're legal or illegal. It's absolute insanity. And he's bothered by it. You know why he's bothered by it, don't you? Because it's the Pope, and he can't be the Pope. Do you remember when this Pope was being chosen? And he said, I would do it myself. That wasn't a joke.
No.
He was like, I would do it myself, but, I'm busy. Nobody was asking you to be the Pope, Donald. You can't be the Pope, mate.
I think it's really interesting insight into the workings of the mind of Donald Trump, right? Because what the struggle is. There's another clip we'll play with Donald Trump responding directly to the Pope. So there's been a back and forth. Not even a back and forth. It's mainly just an attack from Donald Trump on the Pope, because the Pope's called out these wars, as you correctly say. But for me, it's a bit of an insight, because he struggles, and you've seen this with Iran. He struggles where there's not complete and utter compliance and complete and utter control. because we've seen it. I mean, this is what's been different about from my perspective, different about this second term is that he's got people in place who will just say yes and will just let him go away, and he's got complete authority, right? But with the Pope, it's not just the Pope himself, but Catholicism. I don't know what the demographics are in America, but Christianity is well, it is religion, obviously, but it's such a huge part of the way of life there, and people will not take kindly to have to pick between the politics and the religion, and that is gonna, and we've already seen Donald Trump has came out and sort of he's took down this image off his social media, and he said, well, it was supposed to be a medic and it was supposed to be something about the Red Cross and this. I don't know how the fake news are getting this, and so all of the same stuff, just denying it because he knows it's got some pushback. But what I'll do is, just to give people a bit further context, I'll play this clip that we've got of Trump talking about the Pope.
Pope Leo on Truth Social.
I don't think he's doing a very good job. He likes crime, I guess. He hit us. Think of it. He's worried about fear. What about the fear when the ministers and the priests and all of those great people that were arrested during COVID, and in many cases they're outside 10 feet apart and they were arrested. So we don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. No, I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
It's just like, it's the ramblings of a madman at this point, isn't it? I mean, like, like I said, of all institutions to pick a fight with, the Catholic Church just seems like such a bizarre. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing to gain from that fight, but there's everything to lose for Donald Trump, and it's just another sign that this man is losing control.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, for me, and what always astounds me is how he gives away the conversations that he's having in private with people, and how his world is, and what the people who surround him are like, from things he says. So when he says something like he's a very liberal person, Pope Leo, right? Is that meant to be an insult? Is that negative? Like, are you a huge amount of your population of your country that you work for are liberal, like, and have liberal beliefs? It's the idea that is like a negative in itself, and that Pope Leo, I guess he loves crime. What are you on about, man? It makes no sense. And then, of course, the nuclear weapon. They're constantly on about the nuclear weapon because they need to justify Iran. All of this stuff about the nukes. Even George Bush, when he was lying to the American people about, Saddam Hussein having nuclear weapons, even he wasn't going this hard to do it. It is constant, and I don't know, mate. It makes me wonder if it's. I don't know how long it can go on like this, with every world institution having to bite its tongue. The Catholic Church, the Pope, the UN, the EU, NATO, everyone having to just kind of be like, look, he's mad, and we recognize he's mad, but he has the keys to that office, and there's nothing we can do about it in the meantime. He's got his finger on the button. We all have to just kind of go along with it. And once he's gone, he'll be gone. And it makes me, I don't like to celebrate anyone's passing, but it makes me wonder just how jubilant the celebrations are going to be once he is gone.
Yeah, I don't know. It's good. Time will tell, James. Time will tell. But actually, what's funny is that, was it last week we were talking about how media responds? I think it was over something that Donald Trump had done, and how the media responds. Maybe because he said the F word when he shouldn't have. I wanted to show people how the media was responding to some of the things that Barack Obama was wild enough to do during his time. So I've got a little clip lined up. Let's spot the difference here. So,
Okay.
everyone listening at home, I'm going to play a little clip, and this is just the American news outlets responding to some of Obama's wild behaviour while in office.
A pound, a terrorist fist jab. The president of America chest bumps an Air Force grad. Next, Michelle and Barack Obama. Fist bump or fist pound. People call it all sorts of things. But what happened to the old pat on the back? A handshake, a hug. Today's body language and what we can glean from it.
I just want mustard, no ketchup. If you got like a spicy mustard or something like that, or a Dijon mustard, something like that.
All right, Dijon mustard? I think the president watched just a little bit too much television as a kid. I hope you enjoyed that fancy burger, Mr. President. There's one more thing that has many Americans, including myself, humiliated today. Take a look at the photo comparison of our commander-in-chief. There he is, juxtaposed with Vladimir Putin. They have no respect for our president, for his weakness.
So for those who are just listening, the end there was a picture. It's quite a famous picture actually. If Putin, is he riding a horse?
Yeah,
just
with
bare
the
chested.
yeah.
And then there's just a picture of Obama next to him. He's just riding a bike. He's got his helmet on. He's got a pair of jeans on and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And they're losing their minds. And actually, one of the clips that isn't shown on there was when he had the audacity to wear a tan suit. And this was a thing that went on and on and on. The media were losing their minds because he was wearing a tan suit. But what I didn't notice, James, at any point, was him posting AI-generated images of him pretending to be Jesus and picking a fight with the Pope. So
He was doing
I don't know what
much
to
worse
believe.
things. He was doing much worse things, like doing terrorist fist jab.
terrorist.
Sorry, I've never heard of a fist bump being called a terrorist fist jab. What is
It sounds like a
that?
move off Street Fighter.
Literally, that's like a Hadouken and a Kamehameha and a terrorist fist jab. That's new to me. That's new to me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a nice bit of reflection there, just to sort of put a little bit of a pin on the old Donald Trump chat, because we had I know we've had a lot of mail in from around the world.
Oh, yeah, our global audience have been getting
Yeah,
it.
so was it Dave from Venice? No, Dave from Paraguay. I can't remember. Well, I've forgotten his name now.
Are you telling me you've forgotten about John from Tibet already?
It was John from Tibet and Susan
Yeah,
from.
Susan from
that was it.
Paraguay.
No, but we've actually had We've had a message in from Beth Clark, friend of the
Okay.
show,
A
friend of the show,
Friend of
avid
the show.
listener, and always welcome at that class. But just sent on a message from a friend of hers, and asked us if we could discuss it. So I think it's worth discussing. I think it's a nice little talking point. And essentially, it was a post from Karen Morgan on social media saying that she had been at A&E in absolute agony. Okay. Worse than childbirth. Didn't have to show my credit card, insurance, certificate, or pay cash. Over 5 hours, I had the most amazing set of tests and investigations: bloods, ECG, X-ray, CT scans, amongst others. Didn't know some of them existed, and she worked in a clinical setting. Wow. Thank you so much, NHS, and thank you, Anna and Bevan. Not one of those healthcare heroes yesterday were born in the UK, Nigeria, Philippines, Thailand, Italy, India, Kenya. They were there working on a Saturday, helping others, paying taxes, and doing an amazing job. Hang your head in shame, Nigel Farage. So that was the message, and I thought it was a great reminder of what we have, and the fact that we don't need to. we don't pay at the point of usage with the NHS, which is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, just thoughts on that, James?
It's refreshing, isn't it? Because look, we all hear the negative stories about the NHS week in, week out, and I'm not downplaying them. I know there are challenges, and I know people experience difficulties when they go there, and that should be dealt with. And it's different trust to trust, of course. But I do think, there's intention to it. When the Daily Mail is running stories constantly about how bad, the NHS is, there's a reason for that. And it's because they and their owners want to privatize the NHS. And it has been under that attack since the day it was created. Great political hero of mine, mate. And mentioned there, actually, Anureen Bevan. Nye Bevan was the man who created the NHS. And Nye Bevans, and there's a great play. I think you can stream it now, actually. that was done at the National Theatre, and it's called Nye, and it's about Nye Bevan, and it will give you the rundown on how he created it, why he created it, and what he was up against. And from day one, the challenge was, you can't afford this. This is not possible. It's not possible to give universal free healthcare at the point of delivery. But you know what? That's right. It's not possible to do it, but we've done it, and we did it after the Second World War when the country was broke. So this nonsense about it's now costing too much, it's going to cost too much. How do you measure something that is meant to exist for universal good? And these people who measure everything in its return on investment, its profit margins, everything, they can't wrap their heads around the NHS, and they never will be able to. Same with the welfare state, because to them, if it's not generating some kind of financial profit or benefit, then it's not worth anything. The evidence of what the NHS is and why it's good is in that story that we've had. And there are stories like that every hour of every day. Right now, if you fall sick tonight, if you feel ill, if your child gets a fever, anything like that, you can get up, you can go out, and you can go to a walk-in centre, you can go to an A&E. I know there are challenges with the resources that they have and the work that they do, but if it wasn't for nurses doing overtime, doctors working themselves into the grave, physicians, hospital cleaners, all of these people doing a ridiculous amount of hard work, we would not have that institution, because it would have caved long ago to the pressures of private interest. And I just think, mate, it is one of those few things that makes me patriotic, it makes me emotional, and it makes me incredibly proud, and proud of all of the people who work in it, because despite all of the effort to shut it down and to criticize it and destroy it, it still keeps going.
Yeah, 100%, James. I mean, I had a child, my beautiful daughter, coming up to 2 years ago now, and that really opened my eyes. I'm lucky enough that I never really had to rely on the NHS for much during my childhood, or, you know, relatively speaking, I haven't had to use it much. But, you know, when my wife fell pregnant, I can't imagine not having the NHS and having to worry about, okay, well, you know, we're gonna have to pay this for this and that for that, and you know, what about if my daughter falls ill, or if my wife struggles, or if this happens, or what happens if we need to stay extra days, and, you know, does insurance do this and that? No, none of it. The thing that we knew, the thing that we didn't have to think about, the thing that was just secure, was the fact that we had the help when we needed it. We could go in. You know, even, you know, there'll be times, and a lot of people who've gone through pregnancies will be more than aware of this. If, you know, there's a time where you can't feel the baby kicking, and you think, oh, you know, let's go and get checked just to make sure everything's okay. Yeah, you're in there, and you get, so, yes, you may have to wait. That's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, at the minute, because, you know, it is stretched financially, but I mean, even the support afterwards, you know, you've got midwives coming and checking to make sure that the baby's okay, and that the mother's okay, and that everything's working fine, you know. And it wasn't until really going through that process that you just realise how lucky we are as a country to make sure that we can get from the point of you know, the start of the pregnancy all the way through. And now I've got an nearly 2-year-old daughter now who's fit and healthy, and has gone through that process, and that, and, you
amazing.
Know, and everyone has that access. That's the beauty of it. That isn't just because I can afford it, or because someone else up the road can afford it. Everyone gets the same treatment. Everyone gets the same level of care, and I think that's so important. That, you know, it's not dependent on your wealth, how well you get treated in hospital. You know, exactly. That's it. So yeah, just amazing.
The cost of having a kid in America, mate. I mean, you know, I've got the average posted costings here of doing it. If you didn't have I mean, the Affordable Care Act changed things for insurance wise, but roughly, if you had a child in America without insurance, the bill you would get at the end of that process of the birth would be around $22,000. You would have to pay that, and then if it was a C-section, you're pushing about 50 grand for that. And to just think that we don't even have to care about it here, we don't even have to think about it, we just go through the motions, and all of the outpatient provision that takes place, the fact you can go in and get a daily operation to get your you know, you can go in for day surgery now and be given a menu before you go into surgery to choose what food that you're going to have when you come out. You know, you get an option of food prepared for you. Look, I'm not saying it's the Ritz, but like Nye Bevan is someone whose legacy should be honoured because of that. That's a Welsh coal miner, right, who recognised, because his siblings died, he recognised how common infant mortality was in working class communities. I mean, my grandma had siblings who died. It was very common for miscarriage just to happen, or people to die in childbirth. That was common as well. And all of those things that we now don't have to face, you know, the worry of getting sick. And not only that, but the fact that sickness, something you can't control, disease, illness, things that are out of our hands, that could financially ruin you for the rest of your life. And that is a fundamentally unfair thing. And I think we should be incredibly proud that at least that thing we've got it right on in this country.
The only good thing that's come out of Americans not having, you know, a national health service is the TV series Breaking Bad. Because if they had, if Walter White, you know, had access to free healthcare, he wouldn't have needed to go down that dark path and sell methamphetamine. So swings and roundabouts. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's great to just. Do you know what it is? I mean, it's a long. We could really dive into this one because you know we do know that pharmaceutical companies are making money out of, and that's a big old bugbear of mine. But it just goes back to that point of me. Anything for me. This is. I'm going to give away a bit of my sort of political viewpoint here. Anything that is required for people to just survive people should not be able to take dividends and make money off shares and be making profits out of water, electricity, you know, gas, all these different things. The NHS, anything that is just a basic requirement to go out and survive for me should be nationalised and should be you know, should just be taken care of by a government, not seeing water companies. So, like, if you think about everyone in this country is paying a monthly water bill, right, just to be able to turn the taps on, and then those water companies are paying out to foreign investors your money, because that's where the money comes from, paying out to foreign investors and just extracting the wealth out of the country, and then we sit there and go, where's all the money gone? Yeah. Where the blinking heck's all of our cash gone? It's gone abroad. Or it's gone to people who don't need the money.
To private companies that are then making money, to then in countries that are then investing in their populations, like in Germany or in the Netherlands, you know, where they then fund these schemes for social good. But this is it, mate. I mean, the problem is, and the other thing that we haven't really touched on that was in her message there, a central part of it, was the fact that this doesn't work without immigrants. This does not work without people. Yeah, we can pat ourselves on the back all day long and say, yeah, we built the NHS. We're very proud of it. It was great. It was a Welshman who built it. Incredible. It would not exist right now if it was not for immigrants choosing to come here and choosing to work in the NHS, right? Actively choosing to come and do that. I don't know about you, Craig. I've never considered going to another country to go and help them run their health service. So I think we should be incredibly grateful that there are people here willing to do that. And it's not a land of milk and honey, for God's sake. They don't get here and get a plasma screen TV like everyone seems to think. They come here and they graft in our NHS. And they're there for us when we, at wonderful moments in our lives where we have children. They're there for us at difficult moments in our lives where people are ill. And they're there at the most devastating moments in our lives where we lose our loved ones. And they're there holding our hand, giving us treatment, doing amazing work. And they are doing it to try and contribute to something bigger and something that we should be proud of. And to hear people say, oh, I don't want a doctor from Nigeria. I don't want a doctor. Well, I'm sorry, you're not a doctor, mate. So where do you want the doctors to come from, right? Where do you want the nurses to come from? Because you're not doing it, are you? You're not capable of doing it.
There was a fantastic gotcha moment, maybe the start of the year, the back end of last year, where the leader of Britain First, Paul Golden, for those who don't know him, horrible piece of work.
I've got to throw salt over my shoulder because Paul Goulding is after me. He's put a hit out on. He said if anyone can get him my address, is what he said.
Yeah, very nice.
He's going to come and pay me a visit, I think.
Well, you'll be glad to know there was a lovely gotcha moment where he was visiting his old dad in hospital, and he was thanking the staff. And on the whiteboard, on the picture that he took, sat next to his dad, was the name Mohammed something or other. I can't quite remember. And it was just like, you know, a picture speaks 1,000 words, doesn't it? You know, he's there. He obviously criticises. He was criticising the sort of person that is giving his father care in hospital. But anyway, let's cleanse. Let's cleanse from the Paul Golden chat, because it's time for Star of the Week. Everybody's favourite time of the week. And I've got a cork out of it. Do you know what it is? I don't think many people at home, I'd be surprised if anybody at home actually was aware of who this fine gentleman is.
We're about to learn something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, do you know what it is? It's a really simple. Just there's not much to this. But that's the beauty of it. There's a guy on social media who I found called Average Lives. I best get his actual thing up, because it'd be a shame to not give his Average Life Things on Instagram. Okay, that's his page, and basically what he does is exactly that. He just shows what an average life looks like, but he shows how much he appreciates it. So I've got a couple of clips. There's one which has no audio, but this is the clip that actually got me on board, and it caught my attention. So I'll show that one first. Once it's over, it's only a short clip. Once it's over, I'll just describe what it was. So what I showed there was basically just a clip of a very, very average living room. You know, just a standard. It was a nice living room, but very, very average, as he says. And he's just saying that in the caption reads, when you work your butt off, when you and your wife work your butt off, and get the living room that you wanted, or the dream living room, whatever it was. And so what I thought of it, James, was it's just beautiful that, you know, he's clearly worked hard to get to a position where he appreciates the simpler things in life, and he's shown it to the world. Because there's so much. And I'll tell you what, actually, I'll let you reflect on that, James, before I go any further.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, mate. It was really wholesome, actually, that video. And I think the thing is, and I think maybe what you were about to say, without putting words in your mouth, but, you know, you can come back on this, is that so much of social media is performative, isn't it? Like, so much of what you see out there is like, look at me in a private jet, look at me with this fancy stuff, look at me doing this. And yet it's so refreshing to see someone just being like, this man all my life, and I'm grateful for it, because gratitude is like such an undervalued thing. Like, I'm grateful every day for the blessings of my life and things. And, you know, I think sometimes we can turn on our phones and scroll through and feel really depressed about what other people have that we don't, maybe. And actually seeing someone refreshingly saying, this is my reality and I'm grateful for it. It's wonderful to see.
And it was interesting, actually, if you look into the comments, which I did, there's a lot of people dropping comments, and there's a lot, like, majority positive comments being like, this is great, this is great, this is great. But a few like, what you're showing off about that for, that's just a rubbish, that's like whatever. It's like, that's the point. That's exactly the point, is that he's just appreciative of what he's got, and it's beautiful. You know, like, he posts loads of videos every Saturday morning. I love this guy, right? I absolutely love him. I think he's brilliant. He's got I think he's got 2 daughters. Every single Saturday morning, he cooks them pancakes. He's got like dad's, you know, like all the little memorabilia and stuff. It's brilliant. And it's just like, but he makes videos of it, and you can see how proud he is of his daughters and stuff. But I'll drop one more clip on, and this one's got audio, so people who are only listening will be able to hear.
Got something to show you. Oh yeah, I've developed more the lisp since my braces have been around for longer. I don't know how that works. Anyway, we've taken one of my daughter's old doll's houses and we're turning it into a cat hotel. So we bought a large amount of vinyl today, and we're laying the bathroom, and we're putting some picture frames up of cats and some cat stickers, and then we're going to put some cat figures in there because, yeah, she loves cats. And here's the real cat. Hello, Dotty. All right, mate. Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to show you. You can repurpose these things And if you get some actual vinyl, you can redo the whole thing. Anyway, I think she's gonna love it. Yeah, so I'll let you know how we get on with the new cat hotel. See you soon.
Oh,
See,
mate.
yeah, this is the thing. I think for some, I don't know. See, I don't know how that's going to land with a lot of people, because you think like, well, it's pretty boring, or what, you know. But in a world where everyone is dying to get as much attention as possible and will do anything for it, this guy's just coming in, breaking that, and being like, "This is my life. Like, I'm doing all these little bits and pieces," and it's fantastic and it's so refreshing, and I really appreciate it.
He's excited, mate. Like, isn't it just wonderful to see someone excited to do something like that is like a project with his kids? And clearly, I mean, this is, and I know you're one of these as well, but this is why we love girl dads, right? Girl dads have this energy that you bring to the table, this, you know, unapologetic, like, I'm going to get hands-on with these crafty things, you know? That's the antithesis of the manosphere and that, you know, that weakness masquerading as strength. This is real strength. I mean, his daughters must be so lucky to have that that hands-on approach and be able to do projects like that with their dad. And there's so many people who would have loved to be able to do that. But I really do think that's a special thing. Also, I'm a big fan of cats. So, you know, anything, anybody building a hotel for cats, I'm in.
Yeah, but you know what it is? Maybe that's why I've sort of grown to like this guy, is because he's a girl dad. I didn't really think about that. Maybe that's what I'm seeing that, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, like I can relate to that a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, so star of the week, Average Life Things. Go and give him a follow.
Average Life Things. Congratulations.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, well done. He's going to get his he will get his prize in the post. But I've got a sneaky suspicion that we are heavily overdrawn, so it may just be a poster. It may just be like the little certificates I used to get, like the start of the week.
I'll do him a signed picture of both of us. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to receive that. Maybe he could put us up in the cat hotel. Well,
I'm hoping I don't have liability for that class, because I'm hoping I can keep the house, because it's coming up to hundreds of thousands of pounds now. We're in the hole. So if you haven't subscribed, you're listening or watching,
you need to
drop a subscribe, because things are going to get difficult. You're going to start seeing me and James streaming from the same camera soon, because I will end up living at James's house. I'm guessing that's going to...
My TV will get switched off one week. Then it'll be gone the next. Everything will just slowly start disappearing. But we're in it for the long haul, mate. And it's wonderful every week. And thank you so much for that, for bringing Star of the Week, because it's always a lovely way to finish. And I do feel very lucky to spend our week here. And we're building a lovely little community. And everyone who watches and everyone who streams it, everyone who listens back on Spotify and on the other podcast channels, Apple Music and such. Thank you so much for listening, and we really appreciate it. And this is a different kind of way of talking about the news, and I love that we get to end on a high note each week.
Yeah, it's great. I think Star of the Week's such a nice little addition, isn't it? And I loved having a message through from Beth Clark. It's nice to get people involved, because that's why we're doing it live as well. I know we could respond back in time, but the idea of us doing this live is that we can sort of have that back and forth and that conversation. So if you are available at 8 o'clock on Monday evenings, come and join in, man, because we love it. I love this part of the week. I look forward to my Monday nights now. It's great. And there's another one in the bag, and I'm just over the moon to spend time with everyone. I mean, I know John in Tibet would have had a whale of a time. It'll be late on over there. Susan in...
It will be.
Yeah, but so
Susan
they're all
Paraguay. I mean, I don't know.
Susan
Paraguay and Tibet are kind of as far away from each other as you can kind of be, really, aren't they? In my mind, I think they're quite spread out. So I'm pleased we're reaching. We're probably on every time zone imaginable at the moment.
Well, it's funny you say that, right? Because I've got one final quick anecdote. I fired up the live stream on a little solo mission a few nights ago and played a bit of chess just to have a little feel and see. I only had someone from Nepal, like legit, someone from Nepal join the stream and start chatting away, and I played chess against this guy in Nepal.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Absolutely
Did you
amazing.
win?
But yeah, of course I won. course I won't. I'm not messing about. Not messing about. But no, it's been fantastic, and thank you everyone for joining in again. And I'll see you next week. I've been Craig, and you've been.
I've been James, and together, that's been.
That's class.
That's class.
Thanks everybody. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.